Welcome, everyone. We are delighted to have you all today for this exciting opportunity to hear about how one of the largest manufacturers in the world is incorporating sustainability and equity strategies into its product development process and operations. My name is Luan Malake, and I am Senior Researcher at the Healthy Materials Lab and the Dongia Healthier Materials Library at Parsons School of Design in New York City. For those that are new to our work, Healthy Materials Lab is a design-led research lab at Parsons. We dedicate ourselves to placing people's health and environmental health at the center of all design decisions. In practice, that means we raise awareness about toxics in our built environment and work to make healthier alternatives more accessible by creating free resources, like this event. Our particular passion is to transform all affordable housing to be healthy housing. At HML, we understand that change begins when we ask questions, have conversations with experts from a variety of disciplines, and question assumptions about typical design practices. For this reason, we have been looking forward to hearing from Lars-Erik Fridolfsson, an expert on sustainable and equitable manufacturing at IKEA. Given that IKEA is one of the most globally recognized sources for affordable, well-designed furnishings, they have the opportunity to influence billions of people's lives in a multitude of ways. In people's homes, of course, but also people working in factories, living near factories, and suppliers who provide materials to IKEA's manufacturing facilities. IKEA has a lot of influence, and with this comes a lot of responsibility. We know that there are ambitious sustainability goals at the company and that these are constantly evolving. Our speaker, Lars-Erik Fridolfsson, is head of the Fair and Equal department in the Sustainable Transformation Division at IKEA. His role is to define, develop, and maintain strategic commitments in the company's Fair and Equal agenda, and to integrate topics in equitable labor strategies into the company's business development with clear ambitions, commitments, and goals. He works to holistically comprehend these complex topics for effective business decision-making. Lars has over 20 years experience at IKEA in various roles in different parts of the company's value chain. He has been stationed both in Vietnam and India, leading the HR agenda in Southeast Asia and South Asia in the purchasing organizations. He has also served as global succession manager and talent manager in Sweden. He's been working extensively with equality, diversity, and inclusion in various roles and believes that building inclusive business and resilient societies is crucial for a sustainability future. Before we dive in with Lars, I have a few housekeeping notes. The Q&A is open, so while Lars is speaking, feel free to jot your questions in the question box at the bottom of your screen. If you see that someone else has asked a question that you like, give it a thumbs up to push it to the top of the queue. Please use the Q&A box for questions instead of the chat box. Questions that are in the chat box won't be added to the queue. Lars, thank you so much for being here. I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Luan, and thanks for that introduction. And I'm really looking forward to have this session together with you, and I hope we will have an inspiring discussion and many questions along this hour we are having together. So I will now share and present, and happy to answer questions afterwards, as said. So, hey, it's in Swedish for hello. And I want to start off saying that for IKEA, the vision is very important to create a better everyday life for the many people. And working in sustainability, I'm happy that this is actually our vision, to create a better everyday life for the many people. And this vision was created in 1976 by our founder, Ingvar Kamprad. And of course, over the years, the interpretation of and what it means has changed over time, but the core of it is still staying. And for me, it's not only a sign that you have in the start of the reception and then you forget about it. It's actually embedded in everything we do. So we are recruiting through values, and we are recruiting people with an idea of that they want to be a part of this. And we use that as a more important part in choosing candidates than actually using the CVs. So for me, we really want to be and turn in and be sure that we are a value-driven company. So when we started to look into our sustainability strategy that is called People and Planet Positive, then we thought of what should be the foundation of this. And we said, what is important is that we address the challenges we need to work with in the strategy. So we set out 3 main challenges that we wanted to address in our strategy, and that was inequality. And unfortunately, we see that more and more people are, of course, escaping out of poverty every year, but still inequality is increasing overall. And I will come into that a little bit later. Needless to say, climate change, we all hear the news, we all see the different numbers, and none of us really see that it's going in the right direction. And we know that the Paris Agreement is under threat, and the goals we put there, and also the sustainability development goals. So climate change was, of course, important to address. And we are also addressing unsustainable consumption. And how will we manage this? And I think it was kind of brave of us as a retail company who is working with home furniture and customer oriented. Of course, how will we take our part in this? And I hope to answer a bit of that during the conversation and the presentation today. So these 3 challenges, they then helped us to set the focus areas for the strategy, the IKEA sustainability strategy, People and Planet Positive. So the first focus area was healthy and sustainable living. The second focus area was circular and climate positive. And the third one was fair and equal, which I'm are heading. And one very important thing I would like to say is that we wrote in the strategy, and we had a lot of discussions about how can we take our responsibility as having a good balance between how we make a good business, meaning the economic side, how can we make sure that we also are good and work in the boundaries of the planet from an environmental perspective, and how can we make sure that we do no harm to people, but rather have a positive social impact. So this model was originally called the triple bottom line, meaning that there is not only one bottom line in a company, there are 3 bottom lines. So make sure that you have a good figures both on the economic, the social, and the environmental side. And I think here one good thing for us as IKEA is that we are not on the stock market. We are privately owned, or we are belonging to a foundation. So this helps us to be able to be long-term in our decision, and working with the sustainability is something you need to be, that is to be long-term. So we are constantly discussing how do we make sure that we balance these 3 circles together, because many companies, they look like this. It's a Mickey Mouse model instead, or a Mickey Mouse way of working, meaning that the economic part takes the big chunk of all the decision, and that is the important bottom line, and the social and the environmental side is coming much further down in priority. But as I said, we are in many discussions today, how can we balance this in a good way? And I think we still have job to do, but I really like that it's on the table. And then I want to say some words about the context that we are operating in. So I don't know how familiar you are with IKEA, but of course it's originated from Sweden in the 1943. So it's actually turning 80 years this year. So we have celebrated that. And we have good control of the value chain. We are developing our own products. We have own designers, and we have around 9,500 products in the IKEA range. We source a lot of my raw material through our own channels. We have a lot of supplies, around 1,600. That is our partners and suppliers we are working with. And we also have one part called IKEA Industry, around 17,000 people working in that part. So a lot of supplier relations throughout our value chain. And we also have a huge logistics setup with a lot of warehouses and logistics centers around the world. We have big customer meeting points. We are we have 822 million visits to IKEA store, and we have 456 stores on 62 markets around the world, and suppliers we have them in around 50 markets, and then we have also service providers also in as a part of our value chain. And as Luan said in the beginning, that having a big company like this, it's a huge responsibility, but it also gives us great possibilities to do good and really make sure that we take our responsibility in having a sustainable agenda. And overall, we are 231,000 co-workers. So we in IKEA today, and we have a big impact. We can make a difference, and we want to do that as well. So saying a little bit more about the different parts in the strategy. As you remember, there were 3 focus areas, and the first one, healthy and sustainable living. It is about inspire and enable people to live a better everyday life within the boundaries of the planet. And it is about having a circular and climate positive way of working to become climate positive and regenerate resources while growing the IKEA business. It also be being fair and equal and create good possibilities for people around the world and make a really good social impact, and making sure that people can strive and that we also can have resilient societies. So coming in a little bit to the way we are doing product development, because I understand many of you are in the field of developing products, working with material and into the development side. And for you, it can be interesting to understand how we are working with product development. And the foundation for this is something we call democratic design. And with democratic designs, we are looking into 5 dimensions, and they are not working on their own. They are interacted and they influence each other. So when we are looking at the product, we look at the form and the design, and we said that we want to be able to be a company that could have well-designed products and nice products at a good price. So the low price is there, of course. We want to make sure that we have good quality. We want them to be functional, and of course, we want them to be sustainable. And as you can imagine, there is constantly a balancing act between these 5 different parts to make sure that we cover them all in a joint way. So it actually ends up being a good and solid product. And I will now dig a little bit deeper into the sustainability part of the democratic design. So we are talking about 5 different steps in the range and product development process. And they are coming in sequence in the way we are looking at them also. And I will first show the 5 areas, and then or the 5 steps, and then I will show some examples of the 5 steps as well, so you can follow what I mean. So the first step is to develop products that have a positive impact. And the second part is to make sure that we create a long-lasting value to enable circularity. The third part is that we choose the right material. And the fourth part is that we make products fit for production. And the 5th part is, of course, that we design for efficient packaging. So now I would like to give you some examples how these 5 steps are unfolding in the way we are working with them in the product development part. So if you look at the first here, we are talking about develop products that have a positive impact. And here you see that we, of course, want to inspire and enable people to reduce their impact on the environment. And we want to make sure that we also have a positive social impact. And I will come into the inclusive design later on. So I will say a little bit more about that. But that is a way to create positive impact. And we want to make sure that we have more efficient use of resources in the home, either it's water, energy, waste, including prolonging lifespan of products. It's also about being healthier life at home, clean air, clean water in the home, more nutritious food. And while we talk about food, maybe you not know, but we, through our IKEA restaurant and the bistros, with all these 60 markets we are active on and all these 400, almost 500 stores, we are one of the big restaurant chains in the world as well. So we see a good opportunity for us to have a healthy way of educating, if I say like that, and also making sure that we deliver alternatives that is really good for people in terms of vegetarian food and so on. So develop products that have a positive impact. Very important as the first step in these 5 steps of the sustainability part. And you can see one here is the Svogan, it's called. It's a shower monitor, creates awareness about the water use at home. So this is a piece how we educate people to become more sustainable at home. So that is one way of working with this. We are then coming into the next phase and or the next step, and that is how we create a long-lasting value and enable circularity. And we are, of course, designing for a long lifespan. We want to enable people to prolong the lifespan, and we are making sure also that we enable recyclability at the end of product life. So this is, of course, very important. And to say a little bit more about creating a long-lasting value to enable circularity, we talk about the circularity product design principles, and you can see them here, and I guess for some of you this is quite clear and you recognize them, but for IKEA this has been a major part which we are working on. And so we want to design for care, so it will be easier to take care of the products. We want to design for this assembly and reassemble products. And I think if you have used IKEA products like I've done through my whole life, I know that if I move and I want to move an IKEA product and disassemble it and then move it together, take it and reassemble it again, in the history that has not been easy to. If you take a Billy bookshelf and try to assemble that again, that hasn't been easy with the board material and with the screws and so on. So we are really trying to do this in a much better way now, and I think we are on a good track. And we also want to design for repair, and we want to make sure that we design in a way that we are that is possible to do remanufacturing. And we want to design for standardization. I will say a little bit more about that. Design for adaptability, and the design for renewable or recycled materials is also very important, of course. And we are also designing for recyclability. And of course, I could say something about the having material here that is recyclable, and we see, of course, it would be good to have plastic that is one part, and used plastic and take that into the production again. But if that creates quite a lot of problem, I would say, to make sure that we have control of where this waste is coming from, this plastic waste, because one of the big markets for and problem markets in terms of finding material is the recycle sector, where we don't really have control where things are coming from. And from a social point of view, there is a lot of human rights risk into that chain of getting material. So it could sound simple to go for recycled material, but it has its consequences, which you need to take care of as well. So I wanted to highlight that part as something that we think of and discuss a lot in IKEA, how we will make sure that we are safe on that side. Which that will fit the product's intended function and person and purpose. So we have worked over 10 years. It's a long time to try to make products and that you could assemble without too many screws and knots and stuff, and making sure that you can assemble them and dismantle them and get them together again without too many too many tools as well. So it should be much easier to work with the IKEA products. And I think some of you feel that we have a potential to do that better. And I think with this, we are doing a breakthrough actually, but it's taken us a long time, and it will be interesting to see how this will be seen out on the markets when it comes. And we have, of course, like many car developers and so on, they are having platform developments and construction base for several sofas is one thing, for example. So we have that. And it helps us a lot to be more efficient and using material in a much better way. We have also spare parts. We will go big on spare parts, making sure that we can enable customers to prolong the life of their sofa. We're coming into choosing the right material and fit the product's intended function and purpose, renewable or recycled material, as I talked about. But we need to be careful when we look into this, because it's not always that easy to make sure and source it back and feel that we have a responsible sourcing. And so that's a big thing for us. And we also want to make sure that we work with material with the lowest possible impact. And showing then where we have the climate footprint, this picture shows that we actually have the biggest climate footprint in direct material, and it's more than half of the climate footprint on IKEA that is coming from the materials. So this is very, very important. And then the second biggest part is on the direct impact is also the usage of our product in people's homes. So by this, I think it's very interesting to understand how we can make a difference then, and where do we need to put our energy. So of course we put a lot of energy in the materials and try to really making sure that we are using material that don't give that big footprint. We are working, for example, glue. We are now looking into organic glue when we are creating our boards and our board on frame, which could have a good impact on lowering the footprint here. And this is really an interesting way how we could develop this work. So more to do on this, but first thing when you want to act on something is to know how does the situation look like. I want to say some words about the product safety as well. And we have a chemical strategy, and looking into the democratic design again, where you remember the 5 different areas we are looking into, and we want to make sure that we have safe material and products, safe homes, and safe life for people. So we really want to have making sure that we have a good effects on health and environment throughout the whole life cycle. And we, in our chemical strategy, we have increased transparency. We want to work for chemical risk assessments on all materials. We want to phase out substantially material that could cause harm, and we want to make sure that we have suppliers that shares our values. And this is an important thing for us. And I can say the average supplier in IKEA has worked with us 11 years in a row. So we are really in for long-term relationship with our suppliers. And when you work with sustainability, this is really, really important to make sure that you have a value fit, and you see on the ambitions in the same way, both when it comes to doing good business together, but also when it comes to things like sustainability. And we want to have an increased awareness on our work on chemicals. And for example, we banned PFAS in our textile, and that's been done since 2015. And we are phasing out this material in other products as well, and making sure that we are really on a good track delivering healthy and sustainable products. And the same goes for formaldehyde. We had a lot of work with that a couple of years back, how we made sure that we took our responsibility and having good material and in our products. So now I'm on the 4th one. It's about fit for production, and it's important that we use to maximize yield on our products. It's important that we use low impact production techniques. So here you see Vinan, that's towels, and the dye method where we are using less water and less energy consumed during the dyeing process. And this is one way to making sure that we are treating the production part in a good way. We also want to, as I said, maximum yield. So this is Fixa floor protectors, redesigning from round to hexagon shape, minimizing waste in production, which also is a good way. And of course, each one of these doesn't make a difference but with the scale and the big volumes we are doing, by the end of the day, it makes a difference. And then, of course, we want to design for efficient packaging, which is very important in terms of protect the products, enable efficient transportation, and avoid plastic in consumer packaging. So all these things are very important. So what you've done now is that you've seen the 5 different parts in the sustainable side of the democratic design, which we are always going through when we are developing a product in IKEA. So now I want to come in and talk a little bit about my field, fair and equal. And we are really in a situation today where inequality has become a systemic risk. It's not only a part that has a problem for humans, meaning that it's from a value point of view bad that the world is unequal, and you can have a view on that, but it impacts us all, and it impacts our business. So it creates unstable supply chains, it creates unstable markets. So there is, of course, a reason to work with this because we want to do good as a company, but there is also a business risk involved with when inequality is arising. And there are so many numbers I could show, but I chose just a couple of them here. For the first time in a century, global wages are falling. We have so many people getting out of the labor market or having wages falling, which brings them into poverty and makes an inequality situation. More than 300 people have migrated between 1990 and 2020, and in America, I have, of course, the understanding of the migrant discussions there, and in Europe we have a lot of discussions with migration also, and how can we make sure that we handle this in a good way. And a lot of this is coming from inequality reasons, of course, that destabilizes or countries, organizations, business relations and the markets in many different ways. And only 35% of the global labor income are made by women. So the world will not really be a better place before we make sure that we have gender equality, because this is also unfortunately going in the wrong way, where women and girls are getting into a worse situation in many countries that it has been before. So this is so important for creating a fair and equal society. And more than 85 million jobs will disappear due to automation. And you can say there is good benefits with that. Some bad jobs will be gone, but still we need to take care of this in one way or another. Having said all this, I want to say that we want to be optimistic about the future. I don't want to be doom and gloom in everything what I'm saying here. And I don't mean it in a naive way, but I really believe that we must be optimistic, and we must see that there are possibilities to do something about this because inequality is not the law of nature. It actually has been created by people, and then also it means that we can actually solve it as well. So therefore, I think, like we do in IKEA, saying that we are stubborn, optimistic entrepreneurs who want to be good and do good, and we must use that energy and force going forward. And therefore, we have written an ambition in our Fair and Equal agenda, where we say by 2030, our ambition is to play our full part in contributing to a fair and equal society by respecting human rights, creating a positive impact for people across the full value chain, and contributing to resilient societies. So I know this is a big take, but we really believe that we can play our part and do our fair share of this as a big retail company. And to unfold that ambition a little bit, we have said we have 3 commitments, and that is about being a responsible business, contributing to resilient societies. We want to be able to provide and support decent and meaningful work across the value chain, and be in equal and diverse and inclusive business as well. So respect for human rights in the foundation in everything we do. So throughout our whole full value chain, we are doing risk assessment to make sure that we are not jeopardizing human rights risks. We are also mitigating that, making sure that we make a positive impact where we are, and really are trying to measure all our steps through materiality and risk assessment analysis. And children are very important for us in IKEA. And so wherever we are in contact with children and we interact with them, we want to make sure that either offline or online, children are safe and protected. And we want to really be inclusive and family friendly in the way we are acting in our own operation, and also in the way we are doing our products and so on. So we have children's labs where we invite children to develop products together with us, ask them what they like and what works. We do a lot of research on how children learn, so we can do products that is really beneficial for children's education and development. And we also want to create a culture where we are inclusive, and everyone should feel that they are empowered and being able to come forward and raise any concerns. And we are working a lot with gender, age, and sexual orientation, nationality, and many dimensions of diversity to make sure that we are taking our part to make a more inclusive society. And in every place that we have operations, we want to make sure, and this is an example on our customer meeting points, that we actually have programs where we can do a lasting positive, a social positive impact from the co-workers and families to the customers and to the community in the neighborhood. So wherever IKEA operate, we should be a force of doing good. And this is a mandatory thing for our customer meeting points, to make sure they have activities in this field. And throughout our whole value chain, we're committed to providing and supporting safe and healthy work, labor rights and social protection, and striving towards securing a stable and predictable work. And one of the most important parts is that we are moving towards having living wages across the whole value chain, and meaning in our own operation, of course, and we are done there. We have good living wages throughout our own value chain, which we think is a must, of course. But we also want to make sure that throughout the whole value chains and the different parts of the value chain, that we are not only paying minimum wage, because that is by the law, you should do that, of course, but in so many cases you can't live on your minimum wage. So we need to calculate living wages. That means what a family can live on. And that is a big undertaking. And going back to talking about the social, environmental, and the economy going together, this is an important part where we need to balance how we take a part of paying good salaries, which we want to do, and also making a profitable business. And that balance we can do, but it creates job to do it. And it doesn't come by itself. And maybe you heard about just transition, and this is very important in terms of we are moving into a green economy, and it means that a lot of jobs will be gone. I talked about automation, and 80 million jobs will be gone, but many jobs will be gone because in the coal industry, in other sectors where it's not energy efficient production, we want to have a renewable energy in all our production facilities by 2030. What will happen then with the suppliers who can't do that? Will we close them? What will happen with the people there? How can we make sure that we do a just and fair transition into the green economy? And what is our take as a big retailer in this, and as a big company, to make sure that we don't leave people behind? And we are building also an inclusive value chain with our social entrepreneurs and with our social impactful suppliers. So throughout our value chain, we are working with underrepresented groups, to give them the possibility to do business with us, and also to sell products and develop products in the IKEA range through their organizations and through their production. And this is a good way also to take a social responsibility. And we are moving into an inclusive offer, meaning that we are talking about working with the design from the edges, inclusive design, not thinking of that we develop products for the majority, but if we start doing it from the people, that is, if we call it the edge cases, if we do a broad design and that works for the people on the edges, it will probably work for the people in the majority as well. And then we have created a very inclusive product. For example, for kids living with adults, how can we have a smart safety from a children perspective? So that is kind of going from the edges and see how can we make smart products from this. Or it can be from a broad representation of different disabilities and different kinds, and how can we make sure, for example, that we have products that is possible to use if you have problems with your hands and you have some sort of issues. Can we have products that works for you and is possible to utilize in a good way? So this is also something we try to develop and being good at. And we embrace diversity throughout our value chain, as I said, in many dimensions. And we really want to be good at diversity and inclusion and take our responsibility here. Now I'm soon coming to the end of my presentation here, and I would like to talk about this, that we have the sustainability development goals. I think you are all familiar about them, and we are halfway now, and we can see that absolutely we are not up to mark where we need to be in terms of having a good delivery to these goals. So the thing here is that it's not enough to have all the facts and the knowledge we are having today. There is something missing. And I would like you now, if you just take a moment and take a deep breath, all of you. And then I have a question for you. If you think of the oldest person you know, love, and care about, and then you think of the youngest person you know, love, and care about. And in my case, it's my mother, who is 82, and then it's Liv, my little granddaughter, who is half a year. When I think about Liv being 82 years, like my mother is, what kind of world would I like to hand over to Liv when she is 82 years old? So think of that question. And what happens to me when I ask that question, it becomes personal. It means that it becomes under the skin. And if we want to work with sustainability and we want to create a sustainability world, we must make it personal in the terms of that we need to get it under our skin. We need to have our own view. What do I want to do about this? It's not enough with all the facts and all the figures about 1.50 degree and the carbon footprint and all the numbers and the facts. We have a lot of that, but still we are not moving in the way we should. So something is missing. And one way of working with this is to look into our inner development goals that has been created and that we work with in IKEA. Because it means that we need to develop a skill set for ourselves that actually makes us giving the possibility to have capabilities, qualities, and skills where we can work with them to make sure that we deliver to the sustainability development goals. Because there is a close link between the values you are having as a person and the behaviors you show up with and the actions that leads to, and the results then leading by that action. Either they can be good results in terms of good for sustainability, or it can be bad. But we see a chain here that is a logic, and it has to do with how we act, who we are, and what is our skill set. So the inner development goals is talking about these 5 different areas: the being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. These are the 5 areas. And when I look into that, I think there is a couple of them that is especially, there is all in all 23 of them. And the ones that think is really, really good here is under being, I would say the inner compass. Like I said with the question, what world would you like to hand over? What is your inner compass? What is your values in terms of the relationship to yourself? And then in the thinking side, you have a complexity awareness, perspective skills. In relating, you have empathy and compassion. And in the 4th, you have collaborating, and that means you could work with inclusive mindset and intercultural competence. If you want to be truly inclusive, you need to work with this one a lot. The last but not least is, of course, having courage. So these are the ones I've been choosing for my own personal development, making sure that this is linked to how I want to work with sustainability. So for me, it's so important that whatever we do on a fact and the hardcore part of sustainability, it must be aligned with our own personal view and our own skill sets, how we will drive this. So that's very important for me. And by this, I've given you a snapshot of IKEA, where our sustainability strategy with the 3 focus areas. I've showed the triple bottom line model, which we are working after. I've shown you our democratic design with the 5 different areas, and we went deeper into the sustainability part. I've also showed you then in the sustainability part where we have the 5 different steps when we product develop. And I showed you our fair and equal ambition, where we were looking into how we can be a fair and equal society and work with that, and also creating resilient societies. And then I talked about the inner development goals, which needs to be a part of the work for all of us, making sure that we deliver to a sustainable world. So by that, my time is up, and I want to thank you for this short overview of IKEA sustainability strategy. So I'm happy, John Sarah, to discuss further with you and take questions.
That's great, Lars. Thank you so much. What an inspirational and insightful glimpse we got into IKEA, and then also into your way of thinking. It's I don't know. Thanks for the moment of silence too, which I think, I don't know, for me, it did give a moment of reflection. So I appreciate that in the middle of the day. Thank you. And, I think a few things just stand out really about, generally about what the way that you or IKEA, and it's a little hard to know what's you as a person, Lars, and what's IKEA as a company.
Yeah.
But the attitude, you're trying to achieve so many different things as a company, which is really applaudable and complex, as you say.
Yeah.
One thing that stands out is, this thing that you said, we must be optimistic that inequality is not a law of nature.
No.
That it's created instead by people, which means that it's possible to solve it because we made the problem. And I thought that was particularly inspirational and I don't know, resonated clearly. And then this idea that we have to have, that you chose courage and this inclusive mindset, and that there's this awareness of complexity. And I think that the awareness of complexity is the piece that is really good to point out.
Yeah.
Because there's so many data points in the world of sustainability, and they don't always coincide.
No.
And you're a very big company making a lot of impact, as you pointed out. And, I think for the audience here and for all of us, there's a lot of us who do projects in design and small projects and bigger projects, whether it's at the scale of a product or maybe a custom designed piece of furniture or design of an apartment or an apartment building, or even the urban scale.
Yeah.
And we can bring in all of these ideas of sustainability that you've brought, and make healthier, sustainable choices at the scale that's kind of manageable from our perspective. But what IKEA, as this enormous entity across the globe, you have this monumental impact on every decision that you make. And so, I mean, while it's impressive, it is complex. And so there are a lot of questions, and I see that there's a lot of questions in the chat, but how do we actually make healthy, sustainable products? So I just have a couple questions to just to address this complexity. One is, so this goal of both being healthy, sustainable, and affordable has impact. And in our lives as consumers, we often understand that inexpensive means that a product has to sacrifice the quality, or that the things don't last very long because they're inexpensive. And then that creates waste, and that there's overconsumption, and that's all connected to these inexpensive products. So one question is, how have you addressed this complexity over time?
Yeah. I think the democratic design piece, where we are trying to balancing the 5 different parts in terms of the low price and the sustainability and the quality and those things together. And over the years, we've been struggling at IKEA in different aspects of it. So it doesn't mean that we've been perfect all the way. So I think, for example, that low price was a big driver for years, if we look historically back to IKEA. But then we saw that low price sometimes, as you say, Jon Sarah, is not going hand in hand with having products lasting over time, because you feel you could have, it's a cheap and low price product, so I don't need to have it for a long time. But now we address this in our product development. So before a product goes through, we say, will this product last over time, and will people feel that it's quality, and will they take care of it? So, and I remember a time when we had these small lac tables, very cheap tables for $4, I think, something like that. And you could have them. It's a small sideboard, and it's board on frame, and you could have it on a party. And then you bought 10 of them to put your glasses on, and then you throw them away instead of wiping them off and saving them for next time. I mean, and we don't want to see that. So, of course, one part is to make products that people feel that this is worth saving. Of course, this is quality, this will last. And then also, of course, there is something about the attitude. And in the healthy, sustainable living, and that focus area, we really try to educate people as much as we can through our products, that we want you to take your part in being a responsible customer as well. Because what is cheap is also differs depending on where we are in the world. I've been working in India, as we said, and I was a part of when we opened up the retail stores in India. And a lot of our co-workers in the stores couldn't buy many of our products. There's a lot of products that the co-workers in the store couldn't buy. IKEA is expensive in India for many people, right? So we need to put it into a context also. But I think it has a lot to do with the attitude of how we present it, and also how we ask the customer to receive it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of questions in the chat, and I want to get to them too, like about this waste issue. How do we get to zero waste if we're constantly producing new things? And is there a repair? I mean, it's great to hear about your spare parts program.
Yeah.
That's a big piece. We'll get to that. I have another question. I'm tempted to stay on this topic, but I think we can ask the audience questions on that topic. Another question is about the human health goals, and you showed this very impressive elimination of PFAS chemicals in your textiles.
Yeah.
And also the elimination of the strictest regulations of formaldehyde.
Yes.
In your products. And so, in thinking about human health, which is a big topic, and can be thought of in many different ways, like how do you define human health in relation to sustainability? And can you speak to the reduction of toxics during the manufacturing process? So
I mean, throughout the whole production process, and even when we start choosing the material before it goes into production, we are looking into all the different aspects of if the material is healthy or not, and we are testing on the way when we are having the products at the suppliers, and we are testing them when they are ready, and we are also doing spot test out on the consumer markets as well, to making sure that we are not delivering products that it's not healthy. And I think to the point of what is a healthy life and how can we take care of that, it also differs in different parts of the world what it means. But we are investigating a lot of research when we are doing the product development, and I think that is an important part of how do you sleep, for example. What makes a good night's sleep? And we are really scientific in how we look into what is a good night's sleep. So you can, if you go to the IKEA department who's selling our bed sheets, you will see that we've been thinking of if you need a warm sheet, if you need a cold sheet, if you need a big pillow or a small pillow, and we've been working with the physiotherapists on the beds and really trying to be, because that is one of the things that through our products we really try to understand what makes a healthy life. And we are also thinking like, how can we mitigate health issues around the world? I mean, going back to living in Asia again, living in New Delhi, health, the air is catastrophic. We work with air purifiers. We work with water purifiers. We work with silence curtains as well. So these are kind of the things that we embed into our products to be a part of creating a healthier life. Then I think there is more job to do in terms of knowing what really creates a healthy life. And I think we have more to do, that I would say. The most mature parts in IKEA is climate and circular. Fair and equal, healthy, sustainable living. We are still on the edge of being more mature in our way of working. And we are going there and we are moving there, but questions to be asked like you are doing now.
Yeah.
I hope that gave you a glimpse at least on how we are working on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you speak to is, well, the part of this complexity is it's about the products that give a healthier life, but it's also about the people behind those products.
Yeah.
And you spoke to this a bit in terms of living wages.
Yes.
And I appreciate your transparency about that, that how does any company produce an affordable product?
Yeah. Yeah.
And is it on the shoulders of, if we think about health in terms of the people behind the products, is it then on the shoulders of non-living wages? And so for you to say we're working towards living wages, I felt was courageous of you to say that, and transparent.
But I think it's important to understand that the living wage is something that is higher than the minimum wage is what we talk about, because we can say we are safe, through our code of conduct, we are obeying to all the laws in our different value chains when it comes to minimum wages, and that is by the law we are following. But then we are taking a step further. Is that really good enough to have a good life for the persons working in the factories, for example? And then we've seen, together with other companies, we've built a consortium with we are building a consortium with many other companies now to say, how can we stand behind together what is living wages? So it doesn't become a strange competition between companies, and the definition becomes different. What do you think is a living wage in Bangladesh versus I think? We need to have a common view on that. That is why partnership is so important between the different business sectors, where we can't just compete. We need to cooperate also. So living wages is a part where we need to cooperate. Otherwise, we could create problems with that. But I think this living wages is an important thing, that we take our responsibility together, for example, with a supplier where the co-worker is working, and say, how can we together make a business case where we have the good living wage for the person so they can feed and live with a family, and at the same time making good business. And that goes back to the triple bottom line for me. And it's fair to say that we are not there with all the cases, but I guarantee you that we have decided on a progress that by 2030 it will be done.
Yeah, but it's ambitious, and it's great that you can be transparent about that issue. Controversial. I do want to. I have one final question just to address the well, the question really is about addressing climate change and, throughout the value chain of IKEA, which you spoke to a bit. We think a lot about carbon emissions or greenhouse gas emissions coming from transportation, and that you might produce one part in one part of the world and ship it to another part of the world. And how about that? And those supply chains add up. But then it was very interesting to see your chart that the most of the impact of carbon, as we know, the question of embodied carbon, or that the most of the impact is the materials. The materials that are used to make that. I just wonder if you could speak just briefly about transportation emissions versus the carbon emissions from materials.
I mean, that there is a big shift going on in terms of the supply chains, and how large supply chain can you have, and what is like environmental friendly, and what is like building sustainability, and also in terms of what is a stable supply chain of moving material and products from one part to another part in a global business. And we've seen that there is a shift in some markets where you want to be more local. For example, in India, I go back to that example again, or to that country again, where we decided to have a lot of local sourcing in India to make sure that we deliver directly to the stores in India. The backflip of this one, if you are a company that are working with the big volumes to be able to have low costs, if you want to start up with 3 stores in India, out of 400, almost 500 stores, how can you make sure that the mattresses you are developing in India and producing in India have a good economy? Then, I mean, if you start up a small supplier with that. So of course that is one thing, but it's possible to do, but it's not like that easy. Then I think also it's called reshoring. I mean, when you actually, instead of offshore, you take it back home, right? What we're seeing is a negative effect also, and it's not like a clear pattern, but it's happened here and there, where we see the problems you are creating also making people unemployed in the areas where you are moving out from, and where we have a lot of manpower is often in countries with a less developed economy, and also where it's more manual work. And that is a question that we need to take responsibility for, and that goes back to what I talked about, the just transition. If we say, no, let's produce more locally, and now some of our biggest markets is in Europe, what will that mean then for all the production we have in Asia? And so the question is like, this is great for the carbon emission. Great, let's do that. And that comes back to teaching us to work with the complexity and seeing the different causes of things, right? And we have a lot of discussions about this. And we could take an example of pulling out of Myanmar, Burma, because of that we shouldn't have production there, and we don't have right now. But I talk to colleagues in other companies, and if they pull out, what happens with the tens of thousands of textile workers there? Is this better for them, or is it worse for them if we are leaving, right? What is the best thing to do? So I don't want to complicate it, but I want to put the different pieces of the puzzle on the table, because we shouldn't pretend that it's some easy gains in this. That's why we need to work on the skill of dealing with complexity, and that will bore some of our friends in the management team, but we need to stick to that and say, hey, you need to take this extra breath now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I want to hand it over to Luam to take questions from the audience. Lars, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful presentation, Lars. We have a lot of questions from the audience, 39 questions. Obviously we're not going to get to all of them. So if you're in the audience, please upvote the questions that you like, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So our most upvoted question for Lars. So with more and more innovative, healthier material alternatives to plastics, foams, adhesives, etc., how does IKEA vet vendors and support smaller businesses introducing these materials to the market? You just touched upon this, but maybe you can elaborate. Scale is the name of the game. A giant like IKEA could bring these material alternatives to the forefront.
So the question how we want to work with the smaller enterprises, small and medium enterprises, and give them an opportunity, or how should I? understand that question.
Yeah, like is there a way for you to work with smaller companies that are working
Yeah.
with alternatives, like healthier alternatives that may not be super popular yet?
Yeah. So what you are seeing in when I talked about that, we want to be an inclusive business, and that means that we need to take a look at the small and medium enterprises and how we can make sure that we not only work with the giants, because working with small and medium enterprises can be extremely good for the local economy. And I know we have done works when it comes, as I said, we are bigger in food than many think, and we have coffee in IKEA, right? So I know we have done work together with small plantation farmers and so on, and making sure that we contribute and help them to also get the profit to stay with them, instead of that they are one of the many middlemen in the whole chain of coffee, going from the coffee plantation up to the ready product. So we are trying, and we are working with small and medium enterprises. And I wouldn't say that this is like, the majority. Of course it's not, but we see our responsibility to take care of this as well. And we must do that because it's so important for the local economy in many cases. And where I think also probably where you can do a big social impact.
That's great. Okay, the next question. Have you evaluated the potential elimination of plastics versus relying on recycling, where you have little control of what happens to the product? And at least in the US, much ends up in landfill or incinerator. So are you working to eliminate plastics rather than use recycled plastics?
We are not on that path yet. We are on the path of having a recyclable material by 2030 on all our products, or so we will not use raw material that can't regenerate. So I mean, this is but we are not like eliminating plastic. And one interesting thing about IKEA, what I saw in one customer survey, was that they thought that plastic was our biggest material. But wood is our biggest material, by far the biggest material, wood. And as a Scandinavian company, we are living in the forest. We love the forest. We love wood. So that is mostly in our products. But there you can see the perception of a company also, like you say, cheap IKEA must be plastic, right? So we have a job to do there also, because I'm happy that wood is the bigger one, because that actually helps us. But the answer is no, that we are not discussing to really get rid of all plastic. So yeah.
Okay, and this is semi-related. With air quality in mind, what is being done in terms of eliminating or lessening off-gassing, particularly with the use of polyurethane foam in sofas?
I think this is a question that is like too specific for me, working in the fair and equal sector. So I would be happy to come back with that one in terms of my more better material specialists in that case. So I said also before, Luan, that I would be happy to come back with some answers that we could post later on.
Okay.
So this is a bit too and
outside of fair and equal.
Yep. I would say
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, and knowing that IKEA is based in Sweden, do those of us in the US benefit from the more restrictive controls over materials, or are there separate products designed and built for the US market where the lack of chemical controls allow for less restrictions? That's a great question.
Yeah. In general, what we are doing, we are looking at what is the toughest legislation around the world, because we are in 62 markets, right? So general, I can say, when we are looking into the legislation, we are looking where in the world of these 62 markets we are operating on, do we have the toughest regulation? And then we go for the toughest regulation, and that we want to apply to all markets. So that is the starting point, and that's what we did with formaldehyde, for example. When we changed that, we looked where do we have the toughest legislation around that, and then we apply that for the full for all the markets. So you should have a benefit from that. So we are not trying to just follow the local market and make sure that we address that level. So we have high ambitions in this sense.
That's great. That's great. Okay. Um, do the IKEA hacks sites, secondary market websites, and aftermarket parts and cottage industries of the world play a role in your sustainability calculus, meaning like secondhand store,
Yeah,
like online stores?
yeah,
Is that something that's discussed in your
yeah.
internal meetings?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to see how we can create a second-hand market in a good way in IKEA, and also cooperating with partner companies that have like second-hand platforms on internet, and making sure that we can be a part of securing that there is a functional market and second-hand market. And I know we do cooperation with different platforms and second-hand providers out there to make
Oh,
sure
really?
that we create a second-hand market that works, and we want to do even more of that.
Okay, well, I'll go to another question that's related. Uh, the audience would like to hear more about your plans for reclaiming products as part of your circular economy strategy. Is there a plan for that in place? For customers to send their products back to IKEA, for example?
Yeah, yeah. There are pilots going on in this sense, and see how we can do it, and how we of course get economy in that, and making sure that we have an efficient process that works, because it's of course quite complex to do it. And should the stores be the entry point for this, and should you be able to come to the store, and we will have a department taking care of this, and how will that look like? And so I know there are pilots going on to this, but I wouldn't say that this is like rolled out in a big scale. But for sure we are piloting this, because it's a very important part on the circularity ambitions.
Right. And then we had a question about, you had mentioned like using organic adhesives for some of your products. Maybe you could elaborate a bit on that if you have knowledge of that. Are they bio-based
Yeah,
adhesives?
yeah. I mean, when we come to glue, it's bio-based, and this is like in an early stage also, where I don't have the direct information, but it's bio-based for sure. And I mean, if we can make a good thing with glue, and making sure that because that is from many aspects not good to use, so then we could really make a breakthrough on this one, I would say. And we have very promising results in our tests.
That's
And
great.
also we started to recycle, what do you say, fiber board, or what do you say? Yeah.
Like MDF, particle
Yeah,
board.
MDF, yes. So we have also had really good results in terms of recycle this material, and making sure that works to be recycled in different ways. So also a lot of tests going on there, which we have had, which has been complex before to taking care of. And you who have IKEA products, there's a lot of board products in IKEA.
Yes,
So this is really could be also a really good breakthrough. So a lot of positive development is now kind of maturing, and will move into common use.
That's great. That's great. And is there a way, or are there methods for you to like make ingredient transparency part of the IKEA process? Like, as a customer looking at products, like, is there a way to see like what materials are,
Yeah.
being used, and the specifics of those material ingredients?
Yeah. I mean, this is also the way we can be transparent. We know this is a big ask for our customers, to be transparent in every aspect of the products, and the ingredients, and where they are produced, and if they are responsibly produced, and so on. So yes, we want to come to that point where we have that transparency in a good way. And I can't say exactly how far we are on it, but it goes back to the honesty and the possibility to be transparent and be trusted. I think I love the idea that we are so checked on greenwashing, which is good, because I mean this will force us to be really good in this, right? If we say, but we put a label on this product. This is a sustainable product. How the heck can I say that? I need to prove that, right? Otherwise, I will be sued for being greenwashing, which I like. Yeah, let's have that high bar for us, like producing the products. That will if we don't find it ourselves, we will make sure that we will get a help of being pushed to do it. And we want to be transparent.
Yeah, and are you planning to be transparent about some of these great, fair, and equal policies? I think some of this would be exciting for the customers to know, like, and also the supply chain and products as they relate to that.
Yeah, I think we really want to do that, and sometimes I think we are too I don't know, too nervous or humble in a way to talk about this. But I think we are doing great things here on the social entrepreneurs. We are aiming for having tens of thousands social entrepreneurs working for us, and we could show, and you could find these products in the store. But how do you know they're done by a social entrepreneur? Maybe we should be better on showing that. And maybe you say, I will buy this pillow just because it's done by a social entrepreneur. I want to support that, right? Yeah. So I mean, I to your point, I feel like a damn big responsibility on myself to promote this better.
Great. And what is the plan for IKEA having a zero landfill? Or goes back to waste. There's a lot of questions about waste. Is there like a set goal for waste and getting to zero at some point?
Yeah, I mean, we have formed. If I say like this, we have developed our team in sustainability to make sure that we have people that is addressing these different areas which are not mature enough yet for us. And for example, we just launched now the new organization from 1st of September, where we have people on biodiversity who has like dedicated on working on biodiversity. We have people working on land use. We have people working on water. We have people working, as on fair and equal, and we have people working on air pollution. And also what we said is that we must understand that we need to work together in a much better way. And I think maybe that goes for many of you out here in the audience, that we must understand how things are linked to each other in a much, much more integrated way in sustainability. Because land use, you easily, when you start to discuss the land use and rights of land, you are coming into the human rights question. Who owns the land? Who is responsible? And how do we treat the people on this land? Who is living close to the landfill? What is happening? So two things. One thing is that we are addressing with new specialist functions on biodiversity and so on, to make sure that we have a broader view on sustainability, even with this waste and landfill. And also that we are trying to now integrate it much better. If you want to criticize our sustainability strategy, when you go home and read that now after you've listened to me, you will say, good, very, very good. But still, it's not interlinked enough. That you would see. And that needs to be done.
Okay, so that would be like an area you see IKEA improving in.
We will, and we have to. And I think all of you will see how it's so interlinked to different parts in sustainability.
Okay, that's great. I'm just one quick thing, hopefully you can answer, and then I'm gonna have to close, even though we have so many great questions. Thank you to the audience for these questions.
Thank you, the audience. Really great.
There was interest in the formaldehyde. You brought up how formaldehyde was being banned. Do you happen to know what products or could you provide more details about that banning of the formaldehyde? No.
I know it was in the surface treatment on our products. I know it was on the surface treatment that really created a lot of formaldehyde the way I recall it was in the surface treatment on, for example, the bookshelves. I mean the lacquer part on that had formaldehyde, and we said this is not acceptable, and what is the highest standard in the world, and we will apply that.
Okay, great. And so thank you all for attending. Thank you so much, Lars, for being so generous with your time, your expertise, and being transparent and inspiring. And thank you to the Friends of Healthy Materials for their generous support, which makes these events possible. If you'll be in New York City on November 8th, please join us for our next in-person event, From Field to Form, Hemp with the Architectural League of New York. Thank you all so much. You will get the recording in a few days. Thank you again, Lars. We really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
everyone.
Thank you to all.
Thank you, Lars, so much. That was just a phenomenal presentation. Really
Absolutely.
Thank you,
inspiring.
Sarah. Thank you so much. Happy to join you. Thank you.
Thanks.